It says we're live. Ooh, it's the science bitches with honorary bitch Cliff. And welcome to our much postponed episode on Zika virus. Now, I know we covered Zika virus in our last one, but that was specifically to do with an article that had been published in this weird online news site, and we really wanted to hammer that one. That was a special episode. So this is episode 4 of It's the Science Bitches. And the reason that we want to look at Zika is because it's topical. We're about to head into the Olympics in Rio. And we have a rather nasty outbreak of Zika virus in Rio. And there have been athletes pulling out. The golfers aren't happy bunnies. They've pulled out, principally because the golf course involved seems to be surrounded by a marsh full of mosquitoes. And it's the mosquitoes that are the main vector for passing Zika virus on. Not the only vector, but let's just stick with that for the time being. So people don't really want to be in a mosey-infested environment.
There you go. Got a picture for
you.
Yeah,
there's the golf course. So people don't really want to be in this mosey-infested environment in the middle of a Zika virus outbreak. Because, firstly, if you get infected with the Zika virus, you may have no symptoms. Or you may have very vague symptoms, like mild flu-like symptoms. And so you don't know you have it. And the big thing about Zika virus is that if it's contracted in pregnancy, it can cause microcephaly in the developing fetus. And the severity of it is going to depend on whereabouts in the pregnancy you are when you get the virus. Quite a few of the pregnancies end up miscarrying because the defect is so bad. So we don't see the worst case scenarios really. The ones that we are seeing are the ones that reach live birth. So in a way, it's a bit of a self-selecting sample. We don't see some of the really dreadful ones. They've been doing a lot of work on detecting the virus in miscarried fetuses. And they have been detecting it. So the virus does seem to be able to cause a spontaneous termination of the pregnancy. And of course, naturally, women are a bit worried about this. The other thing, however, is that if you go to an area where all the mosies are chock full of Zika virus, and you pick up the Zika virus, and then you go home to your own mosey-infested place, you can end up helping to get the Zika virus into your local mosey population. And I think Jade's actually come across a case of Zika having been caught from a mosey bite in Florida. Then there's also sexual transmission, and apparently Zika virus can be sexually transmitted. And the virus has been detected in the semen of some poor guy 60 odd days after his primary infection. So you're talking about 2 months down the line.
Mm.
So anybody who goes to a Zika affected area does run the risk of bringing it back with them, and they can pass it on to their partner. Now, if that's a chappie who is bringing it back and passing it on to his partner who's trying for a baby, then you get problems. And this is why people are so worried about it. This is why the travel advice is for pregnant women not to travel to these regions. Because they run the risk of picking up Zika virus.
There's another problem at the moment, which is we're in an El Nino year, isn't it? Which means that they're more likely to spread, the mosquitoes are more likely to spread further because the warmer temperatures getting further north.
Yeah, well, this mosquito is actually pretty widespread. The mosey that does it. It's a pretty widespread mosey. They have it in the States.
I have slides that show
so,
that.
I mean, they can go into those details. So anyway, this is why we've chosen to do this episode. That because of how close the Olympics are, and because of the number of athletes that have actually chosen not to take the risk. And because we don't know how long that virus will persist within an infected individual after infection. So people have had to make these choices. So Jade has put together a presentation on Zika virus. And one thing I want to emphasise right at the beginning, and Jade will go into this at some point, is that we've known about Zika virus for a long, long time. I believe it was first isolated in the 1950s.
40s, I believe.
40s?
I think it was 47 I saw from the slide.
I'm trying to find, I had a wee thingy. But it first appeared in the Zika forest. And that is within the continent of Africa. And while it was confined to areas of low population density, and certainly not first world, no attention was really getting paid to it. But it crept ever eastward from Africa, and it reached Polynesia, etc., and then it reached South America, and it reached an urban centre. So you've got high population density, and suddenly we have loads of people now getting infected with the Zika virus. Now, it's only when you have enough cases of it that you start to see any pattern emerge. And it was only in Brazil that this pattern of Zika infection and microcephaly was first noticed. Brazil went from about 160 cases of microcephaly per year to nearly 6,000 cases in 5 months. Now that's a huge jump. But you're only going to see that when you have enough cases of it. While it was still in the sparsely populated regions, that link wasn't being made. But now we've got it in this big urban population. We have international air travel. The mosquito itself is very widespread. People can take the infection to their own area and help to infect their local mosquito population. And so it is now being classed as a pandemic. And we all know that mosquito-borne illnesses can be a real problem to control. Now, the thing about Zika is it's a virus. And just to make this really clear from the beginning, antibiotics don't work against viruses. This is something we come up against all the time. People don't understand the difference between a bacterium and a virus. You can't use antibiotics against viruses. There aren't any cures for viruses. The best you can do is vaccinate. We don't have a vaccine for Zika yet. I think there are two that are looking as if they've got some potential, that they're giving us a good immune response in mouse models. But that's as far as they've got. And we only have 2 weeks until the start of the Olympics in our mosquito-infested, Zika virus-infested area. People from all over the world are going to be going there. And as I say, athletes are now choosing to pull out rather than take the risk. So Jade has got this presentation that she has put together all about Zika virus. We're going to try and stay away from the really in-depth science about, you know, the various proteins within the virus and the icosahedral structures and all the rest of it. We're going to stay away from that, and we want to look at the implications, firstly, for the Olympics, and really look at athletes pulling out. Are they justified? And then also look at the longer-term implications when it comes to the birth defects caused by this virus and caused by other viruses. And I'm now going to mute myself, and I'm going to hand over to Jade, who has done loads of work on this for us. I've had a dead Chromebook. I've lost all my information for this. So we're relying on Jade, and we know we can, because she's looked at this in depth. She has the information at her fingertips, and she's going to give you a presentation. So take it away, Jade.
Well, thank you, Fiona. And please interrupt if there's any, anything you want to correct me on, questions you have to ask. And for those people, if in the live chat, if we have any watching live, please leave any questions. Unfortunately, because my computer connection is not very good, and I have a bunch of stuff up right now for this particular presentation, I watch the live chat, but I'm sure my friends here will be keeping a quick eye on it. So actually, Cliff, we should probably skip the this stuff and go straight to slide 7.
Number 7.
Okay. Yeah, this is just a little bit about Zika virus. What is it? And is okay. There we go. Oh no, back 2.
There you go.
Okay, so what I'm going to start with, there we go, is the history of the Zika virus. Now, I'm going to skim through some of these slides. However, one of the reasons I want to put the slides here is so that if people who are watching want more information, you can go back and read the slides. And should anyone really care, I have this all in both a PowerPoint presentation and a Google Docs, and I can make them available. And after we've gone, after the Hangout is over, I will get together, I have all the links together, and we will publish all the links so that anyone can see what we're talking about here. So let's start here. This is from the World Health Organization. And this is the history of the Zika virus. You can see this quickly. I'll run through it. So in 1947, scientists conducting routine surveillance in the Zika forest in Uganda isolate the Zika virus in samples taken from a captive sentinel rhesus monkey. And then the virus is recovered from the mosquito, Aedes africanus, caught on a tree platform, the Zika virus. And the first human cases are detected in Uganda and the United Republic of Tanzania. Now go to the next slide. Cliff? Okay, there we go. And then we see it expand from 1969 to 1983. It expands to Malaysia and Pakistan. 2007, we see it spreads from Africa and Asia, and it caused the first large outbreak in humans on the Pacific island of Yap. And then in 2014, the virus caused outbreaks in 4 other groups of Pacific islands. And we can go to the next slide. And as I said, if you want to read more about this, you can stop this as we go, or I will make it available. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting, because in 2015, Brazil notifies the World Health Organization of reports of an illness characterized by skin rash in northeastern states, and nearly 7,000 cases of this illness are reported, and all cases are mild with no reported deaths. So Zika was not suspected at this stage, and no tests for Zika were carried out. And then in February of 2016, the World Health Organization declares that the recent association of Zika infections with clusters of microcephaly and other neurological disorders constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. Now let's go to the next slide. Cliff Systems a tad slow. Okay. Now this is where we start with the beginning of, where did Zika virus come from? You see the picture here. This is Zika forest, and this began as a Rockefeller-funded yellow fever outpost in 1936. Soon became a leading laboratory. Yada yada yada. And because they realized in the mid-1940s different mosquitoes are active at different elevations, they built this research area to study the mosquitoes. Next slide, please. Okay. And then, as you see here again, in 1947, that they first discovered the virus. Next slide, please. And when they first discovered it, as you can see here, they discovered it was only affected monkeys. Even in the subsequent decades, when a dozen or so isolated human cases began to emerge, the symptoms were mild, and Zika never was seen as a threat. Next slide, please.
Done.
And it says it's unclear just how long Zika has been around, because some studies have found immunity in populations in Africa and Asia, perhaps due to the similarity to other viruses. And that's another thing to realize. Zika is similar to, how is it pronounced, Fiona? Dengue fever?
Dengue.
Dengue fever? Okay, it's similar to dengue fever and some other viruses. So the immunity could be from those other but here's the part that gets it. It says, more troubling, many scientists believe the 2007 strain of Zika has mutated from the original virus found in Uganda with increased virulence. Subsequent years saw the virus spread quickly through the Pacific Islands and then landing in Brazil. Next slide, please.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think that one of the other reasons why it hasn't been quite so virulent would be because There's an awful lot of problems with things like malaria, and as a result, using nets and mosquito nets at night and things like that effectively is making people
Yeah.
aware of the dangers.
Yeah, that could be, and that comes up a little bit. And yeah, I will slow down. Sorry about that. I do tend to talk fast. Next.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just putting this up here. This is from the antiviral research. If anyone wants to look into this, this gives you a quick rundown of the next, please, of the history and yeah, so previously obscure flavivirus. Okay, well we'll go to this anyway. Now this is very interesting. This is from Time magazine. It says Zika hasn't hurt Africa, and that may be the key to beating it. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time with this. And it says there's no scientific documentation of Zika-related birth defects in Africa where the virus originated. What that means for better understanding of the virus and its side effects. Next. Some of the things, in this, we've already talked about it well. It says, on the surface, comparing the impact of the sudden outbreak in Brazil to the virus's decades-long existence in Africa is sort of like comparing apples to oranges, said Dr. Michael Edelstein, an epidemiologist in the Global Health Security in London. He says, and this is an important point, medical reporting is much stronger in middle-income countries like Brazil than desperately poor African countries that have limited health programs and major health challenges, so it could just simply be a question of missing data. Next. And it's notable that the mosquitoes that transmit Zika in Africa prefer to live in sparsely populated forest areas, unlike the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes transmitting the virus in South America, which thrive in densely packed cities. So while Zika is believed to have infected 1.5 million in South America, the biggest and only recorded outbreak in Africa was in Gabon in 2007, which infected an estimated 20,000 people. And statistically, that's too low to detect rare complications like microcephaly. So that may be why we're not seeing it. You may remember I mentioned the Aedes africanus mosquito earlier. Next.
Already there.
You're on me already. Okay, you're good. So, and it says, this is another problem. Viruses, kind of like you brought up, Cliff, viruses or chemical exposure, even alcohol can cause microcephaly, and it occurs around the world. So in Africa's rural areas, maybe even a 300% increase, which would trigger an alarm in an urban hospital, could pass unnoticed. Next. As he says, unless you're looking for it, you're unlikely to find it. So this may be part of the reason. And by infecting lab animals with different strains, scientists will be able to figure out which genetic mutations may work. It says the more efficient the virus is at replicating itself, the greater amount of virus there is in the bloodstream, and the more likely it is to cross the placenta into the fetus, which could cause developmental problems. And remember, they already said they think at this point that it has mutated, and this is why this is causing a problem. Next.
Yep.
Now, this is the important part. That was just preview. The most likely explanation for why Zika hasn't caused as many problems in Africa as it has in Brazil also provides the most hope. Africans have had decades to build up a resistance to a disease that most South Americans are encountering for the first time. Virtually everyone in South America is immunologically naive, says Weaver. Combine that with large, densely packed cities full of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, and you have all the fuel you need for a major epidemic like this one. So even if the people in Africa were infected with a different strain of the Zika virus, the immunity that they have built up could be really useful in attacking this one. Now, I've got some slides here just to point out that the research has been done that has concluded for right here. It says CDC, this is in April 13, 2016, the CDC has concluded the Zika causes microcephaly and other birth defects. Next. And I'll have these links here for those of you who wish to look into this further. And this is the background of this. It says, the report notes that no single piece of evidence proves conclusive proof that Zika virus infection is a cause of microcephaly, rather increasing evidence from a number of recently published studies. One of the things we've found is they found the Zika virus in the brains of infants whose mothers have been infected with Zika. Next. Now, these are the symptoms of microcephaly, just to show you. You have a backward sloping forehead, hyperactivity, facial distortions, delays in speech movement, seizures, small head size, coordination difficulties, dwarfism, and short stature. Next. I know I'm going through this kind of quick, but we'll get to some more important stuff. And one of the things, this is from the Mayo Clinic, and it points out that some children with microcephaly have normal intelligence, even though their heads will always be small. But there are all these complications that can occur, including developmental delays, coordination, dwarfism, facial distortions, hyperactivity, mental retardation, and seizures. Next. So this is a serious thing.
You there, Jade?
Yeah, okay. I'm here. This is just an example of some of the work that has been done to show the association between microcephaly and the Zika virus. One of the science shows that Zika, they have confirmed that Zika causes microcephaly in mice, and they did the study in French Polynesia, and they found that the Brazilian Zika virus can cause birth defects in experimental models. So there is little dispute that the Zika is associated with microcephaly. And this will come up a bit later because there are some people who are going, well, are you sure? Yeah, we're sure. Next. Now, this is an interesting case. One twin has microcephaly and the other doesn't. But why? Next. Okay. Now, this is one of 6. These two twins are, Lucas and Laura, are one of 6 sets of twins in Brazil, and they're studying to see why one has microcephaly and the other doesn't. But one of the things I wanted to point out is, remember, these are a lot of the people who are having children affected with microcephaly. These are not wealthy people. These are just poor people. People living in the slums have less protection against mosquitoes. And as the mother says, if you look at the picture, you can actually see the difference in size between the two twins there.
One of the reasons why this tends to happen is because poorer neighborhoods don't have proper running water.
That's right.
One of the main places that mosquitoes like to hide or like to be around is standing water. And when you've got underdeveloped streets and things like that, that's where you're going to get puddles and potholes, you know, and that leads to a greater danger for them.
Right, and you'll see here it says, when she wakes, even her cries seem to struggle from her throat. She can't breastfeed. She can barely hold up her small head. She has microcephaly. And her mother says, we try to live in the moment with her because we worry, what if she needs a wheelchair? How will she move around in the house? It's really complicated to think about the future. And my heart goes out to all these parents and families that are dealing with this. Next. Now, this is part of the problem. These are the symptoms of the Zika virus. And by the way, I think I mentioned before that if you don't see another link to them, they come from Wikipedia. What are the symptoms of Zika? You get a headache, painful or red eyes, fever, joint pain, itching rash, muscle pain. And you may not have only symptoms, but think of how many things this could be. This could be the flu. You could think you've got some sort of an allergy reaction or lots of other things. One of the problems with Zika is, for the most part, it's a very, very mild infection, and nothing points to Zika. It could be a lot of different things, which is why we have to really be careful to take preventative measures. Next clip, please.
Sorry, I was just talking. I was muted because a fire went by. How many times have you gone on holiday where it's a little bit warmer than you used to, and you start to get a bit of a headache because you're maybe a little bit more dehydrated than you normally are because you're not used to drinking as much water, where you live, as you need to when you're in a warmer place. That's why you might end up with the rash and so on. So
Right, exactly. A headache, fever, your eyes
Yeah.
hurt.
yeah, you're
All
not
these
gonna.
symptoms are very non-specific symptoms.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's along the lines of in Scotland, when a mother knows that her child is ill and can't put their finger on it, we
Mm.
say, well, he's just a bit hingy. And a doctor knows exactly what you mean. They're hingy. You can't put your
Yeah,
finger on it, but you know they're just not quite right. And a lot of the symptoms of Zika would come under the definition of a bit hingy. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
hmm
On you go.
that's okay. I understand. Now, this is from Zika virus, what Canadian travelers need to know. And they point out transmitted by mosquito bite. 1 in 5 people infected will become ill.
That
Symptoms
is
normally last.
really bad.
Yeah, symptoms normally last 2 to 7 days. They point out mosquitoes known to transmit the virus are not present in Canada. Well, so far that's true. Illness is usually mild. Death is rare. Symptoms, fever, rash. We've already said it, big deal. But, and the very important one, no treatment or vaccine is available. All they can do is treat the symptoms, just like with any viral infection. And we have no vaccine yet.
Yeah, even Donald Trump's wall won't protect you from this thing.
That's right, it won't. Mosquitoes don't care about no damn walls.
Heck,
On
next one.
that picture is roughly what the Zika virus looks like.
Next one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
And this is the culprit. This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Next. And the main culprit. Now, this is where the Aedes aegypti is predicted distribution in 2015. Blue is absent, red is present. So this shows you where the little guy lives. And you'll notice it's not in Canada. Next one, please. And this is where it's found in the United States.
Mm.
Next one, please. Now, this is the Aedes albopictus mosquito. Now, they think, I'm not sure yet, they think this one may carry Zika too, to humans. Next slide.
I don't.
Okay.
Do mosquitoes mate together? Could maybe it jump that way?
There is some hybridization in mosquitoes. I'm not sure of the Aedes. I'll have to look that up of the Aedes genus. Next slide. And
If I
this
could
is
just
where the
answer
Aedes.
this, Cliff, if I could answer Cliff's question,
Previous.
the way it can jump from mosey to mosey, either individual mosey to another mosey, or to different species of mosey,
No, go back, Cliff. Sorry.
is that if a mosquito bites
Thank you.
someone who has Zika virus, then the mosquito picks the Zika virus up from the person. If a mosquito that's got Zika virus bites someone, it transmits the Zika virus to that person. So you have a chain of it going mosey to human to mosey to human to mosey to human to mosey to human. Now, if you have somebody who gets bitten by a mosey with Zika virus, and they get Zika virus from it, and then they get bitten by another mosey, that other mosey, and it may be a different species, will then pick the virus up from that person.
No.
The mosquitoes don't tend to spread the virus within their own population. It goes through the human, very like malaria does.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be quite easy that the athlete that goes down to Brazil, takes part, gets bitten, comes home, and then gets nibbled by a mosquito.
Yeah.
And gives it to someone else.
Yes.
Right.
That's why these mosquito-borne diseases are a real pain to try and control. Sorry, on you go, Jade.
That's okay, which is one of the things I wanted to show with these different mosquitoes. Because if you'll notice, if you might remember the previous slide, this mosquito lives in areas that the other mosquito does not. Next slide.
Well, I've noticed a couple of places where it's far more prevalent.
Yes.
Places like Italy,
Mm-hmm.
which are looking a lot darker.
Yep.
The East Coast, because on the previous, it was the top half of Australia. But now we're talking about, Sydney and Brisbane and places like that. And we're also seeing a lot more up on the east coast of the US, all the way up to Canada.
Right, and that the next slide.
A few little bits up there. Yeah.
The next slide shows the U.S. And it's even more dramatic here. As you can see, this is the Aedes albopictus distribution in the United States, which covers a lot larger area. So if like as Fiona said, if the Aedes aegypti mosquito bites someone, gives them the Zika virus, and then they're bitten by Aedes albopictus mosquito, then that could pick it up, the Zika virus, and there you go. But I'm a little bit
on this. What's this green spot?
I don't know. That's in Colorado. I have no idea. It would be interesting to see what the perhaps that's just a little hot spot in Colorado.
Yeah, a localized population.
That's what I would guess what it is, yeah.
Yeah, they found it there. Because remember, this is the distribution of that specific mosquito. And for some reason, there's this small pocket in the north of Colorado.
I also find it interesting that Hawaii has it, but Puerto Rico, is this?
This is only given the American figures, though, remember.
Yeah.
Right, and this
I
is
don't
only...
know whether Puerto Rico's missed out, because Puerto Rico is a colour all of its own. It's pure white, whereas the other states in America are grey.
Yeah, that could be. But, and again, it's only this mosquito. So let's go to the next one, please. And I have something to point out about this. Now, this is, this is on the seasonal occurrence and abundance of the Zika virus vector mosquito, Aedes aegypti, in the contiguous United States. And as you can see, the darker the color, the more potential abundance of this mosquito.
So the East Coast does have a much higher population by comparison.
Right, which is why I wanted to show this slide. Now, we can actually kind of just go quickly from the next slide to the next one, because the next one just has words on it. This one, yeah, okay. Now, this is from the National Resources Defense Council, and this says other viruses like dengue and something I can't pronounce are also spread by Aedes aegypti and are present on the U.S. mainland, but they haven't spread widely. This is important to remember because this is says the CDC says it's a mistake to look at maps like this and simply assume that the Zika virus will spread in the same way that the mosquitoes do. Okay, so just because the mosquitoes are there, it does not mean that the virus is going to be transmitted there. So there's no need to panic, but there is need to be very, very careful and to try to attack this thing as best we can. Because some people will just completely go off the wall and say, oh my goodness, the mosquito is found there. So the mosquito is found there, we're going to get Zika. Malaria-bearing, the type of mosquitoes that carry malaria are found here in California. And yet, even though malaria has been introduced into California a number of times, it's never caught on and spread. Why that is, I'm not sure. I looked into it some time ago, and the scientists weren't sure why that is. So just because the mosquito is there and the mosquito carries the virus doesn't mean that the virus is going to go into those areas. However, at the same time, we need to be very cautious and do everything we can to protect ourselves and to pay attention to the reports on the news and from the CDC and from your local, health departments as to whether or not the virus has been transmitted in your area. Can we go to the next one, please? Now, this is what the little bugger looks like as a larva. And this is the point that also is really going to affect how it might spread. These particular mosquitoes, as it says, these is not some jungle-dwelling insect that only rarely comes into contact with people. It is one of those animals like cockroaches, pigeons, and urban foxes that thrives in built-up areas. It does not need natural water sources to breed. It can lay eggs in the small and plentiful pools of stagnant water, such as gutters or flower pots found in cities.
They're in my pond.
Yes, yes. And which is why, by the way, if you live in an area, like I do here in California, where mosquitoes can breed in stagnant water, if you have a pond or something like that, you can contact your county and you can.
Excuse me. Sorry.
That's okay. Interesting sneeze you have there, Cliff. You can contact your county.
It's a Zika sneeze.
Yeah, it's a Zika sneeze.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
You can contact your county and or your city or whatever group you have wherever you are in the world, and they will probably provide you with some mosquito-eating fish that you can put in your pond, or you can look into this yourself and get some. This is, obviously fish aren't going to live in a flower pot, but so you should be careful and watch all standing water around your house, especially as the Zika virus starts to spread. Please be aware that just a little pool of water that sits for a few days can cause these little guys to start breeding. And if you do have a pond or something like that, either drain it or make sure you get some mosquito-eating fish. Lots and lots of fish love mosquito larvae. I had somebody once say to me, wouldn't it be nice if we could eradicate mosquitoes from the world? I pointed out that would kill a lot of fish. Because a lot of fish depend on mosquito larvae in part for their protein. So please be careful. Remove all standing water around your house. If you cannot, if it's a pond or a pool, or even you have like a lake or something on your property, make sure that it either already has the appropriate kind of fish into that eat mosquito, or please get them there and contact whatever political entity that you live in for any assistance, because they will gladly help you. Contact the health department if nobody else, because they don't want this to spread either. Next slide, please. And this just shows you a picture of the life cycle. And you notice it's showing you a jar here. And this this is the point I want to show you here. After developing through 4 larval stages, the larva metamorphizes into pupas. Like the larval stage, the pupa stage is also aquatic. After 2 days, a fully developed adult mosquito forms and breaks through the skin of the pupa. The adult mosquito can fly and has terrestrial. So it doesn't take very long to go from egg to mosquito, which is why you need to make sure you have no standing water around your house. Next. Oh, now, this is an interesting little guy. This is the Culex, boy, I can't talk all of a sudden, Culex quinquefasciatus mosquito. This is a far more common mosquito, and it's possible it may be implicated as well. Next slide, please.
Sounds like guilt by association.
Well, I'll show you. Oops, did I miss that one? Okay, oh no, you know what I did? Excuse me, I forgot something. If I can just go to my, nothing wrong with me. Can we go back to the Culex fasciatus for a minute? Okay. This is from Bug Square blog at the University of California at Davis Agriculture. I thought I had the slide, but anyway, it says Constancia Ares, research coordinator of the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, considered one of the oldest and most prestigious scientific research institutes in South America, reported that the common southern house mosquito Culex quinquefasciatus may be a potential vector of the Zika virus. Studies in Ayer's lab confirmed that Culex quinquefasciatus infected with Zika, isolated from local patients, showed high transmission rate as determined by virus replication in the salivary glands. As, quote, of course these studies were done in the lab, not in the field, and this is the beginning of research. We asked medical entomologist William Rison, editor of the Journal of Medical Entomology, and professor emeritus of the Department of Pathology, Microbiology, and Immunology, UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, about this. He says, in California, less than 3% of the Culex, including Culex quinquefasciatus, have been found to feed on humans, even in cities like Los Angeles, where humans are the most numerous host. Therefore, even if they are susceptible to infection, the probability of a female feeding on humans to acquire and then refeed on humans to transmit would be 0.03 times 0.03 or 0.0009, or a rare event indeed. That said, there are areas of the world where Quincunxia fasciatus feeds predominantly on humans in domestic settings. So this is not necessarily something we have to be worried about here, but this is certainly something they have to research. This Zika could be far more dangerous than we think. Next slide, please. And this is where we go to Zika and sex. And I showed a picture of two mosquitoes mating because I didn't think people would appreciate seeing a picture of two humans mating.
This is mozzie porn.
I know, mozzie porn. Here we go. This is Aedes albopictus, which is a relative of Aedes aegyptus. Okay, and we can go on to the next one. Okay. Now, where am I? Oh, went to the wrong place. Okay. Oh, before we get to this, actually, just let me say something. Now, the basics of Zika and sex is a man with Zika can pass it to his female or male partners. Well, actually, let me go back for that. Before this incident right here, it was thought that Zika, well, the only evidence they had of Zika being transmitted is from male to female. They did not have any evidence of Zika being transmitted from female to male until this case. And this happened in New York. And a woman infected her male partner with Zika through sex. And it does say 7 days after they had sex, her male partner developed similar symptoms. And then, yes, he's got Zika. Now, the woman began menstruating the day after they had sex, so they think that the Zika may have been transmitted through vaginal fluid. No woman-to-woman sexual transmission is reported to date. But next, you can go ahead and go to the next slide if you want. But this is the basics of Zika with sex. So a man with Zika can pass it to his female or male partners during vaginal, anal, or oral sex without a condom. Zika can be passed from a man with symptoms to his sex partners before his symptoms start, while he has symptoms, or after his symptoms end. Men with Zika who never develop symptoms may also be able to pass the virus to their sex partners. Zika virus can stay in semen longer than in blood, but we don't know exactly how long Zika stays in semen or how long it can be passed to sex partners. And as you can see here, Zika, there says the evidence is still emerging, but this is fairly new information that Zika may be passed to sex partners more often than is suspected. And it says the gender difference appears at age which sexual activity begins. Okay, anyway, next, please.
This is a really bothersome graph, isn't it?
Yes,
look at this decline. Oh, bloody hell.
Okay, now this is there is concern about breastfeeding, and I wanted to talk to you about that. I do think I already, just to go back to what Fiona mentioned, is there was a man in French Polynesia who they discovered had the Zika virus stayed in his semen for 63 days. She already mentioned that, but anyway, Zika in breast milk. So it's unknown whether it can be transmitted to a baby yet. They have found infectious Zika particles in breast milk, but who says that women should go ahead and breastfeed, because there is no evidence at the moment that the Zika virus can be transmitted through breast milk, and the benefits of breastfeeding are far greater than any danger they see at the moment from Zika in breast milk. Next, please. Of course, it's still being investigated, as everything should be. Now, okay, this is the this is talking about, this is actually something Fiona could explain a little bit better than I can. But we do see that Zika, we see, if you can explain this, dengue virus serocross-reactivity drives antibody-dependent enhancement of infection with Zika virus. So, the Zika infection has occurred in areas previously exposed to dengue virus, which is closely related, and they investigate the cross-reaction between the two viruses. Plasma immune to dengue virus showed substantial cross-reaction to Zika and was able to drive antibody-dependent enhancement of Zika infection. So basically, from what I understand, Fiona, if I'm correct, is those patients who have been infected with dengue virus have developed some immunity to Zika.
Well, yes, but what happens is that if they've had dengue, they have a more severe reaction to infection with Zika virus. So symptoms are more serious.
Ah, that's it. Well, that might actually,
Yeah.
you know, in a way be good because you're gonna, you might actually know you've had something. Okay, now the next one I'm gonna need Fiona 4.2 just for pronunciation. Because there's a word here I can't pronounce. The Zika virus, microcephaly, and the word I can never pronounce.
Whereabouts are we?
Right
Oh,
here.
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yeah, see, I can never pronounce that. I don't know why. Guillain-Barré syndrome. And one of the things they've noticed here is it says here from the World Health Organization, it says, in the context of Zika virus circulation, 13 countries or territories worldwide have reported an increase of Guillain-Barré syndrome and or laboratory confirmation of a Zika virus infection among ZBS cases. Now, based on a growing body of preliminary research, there is scientific consensus that Zika virus is a cause of microcephaly and Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more serious than just microcephaly. Next, please.
Remind me, what is Guillain-Barré syndrome?
Next, please.
Ah.
Guillain-Barré syndrome. This is from Wikipedia, for those of you who want to look it up. The rapid onset muscle weakness caused by the immune system damaging the peripheral nervous system. Many experience changes in sensation or develop pain, followed by muscle weakness beginning in the feet and hands. The symptoms develop over a half day to 2 weeks. During the acute phase, the disorder can be life-threatening, with about a quarter developing weakness of the breathing muscles and requiring mechanical ventilation. Some are affected by changes in the function of the autonomic nervous system, which can lead to dangerous abnormalities in heart rate and blood pressure. And it gives you the first symptoms, numbness, tingling, and pain alone, and so on and so forth. You can read this for yourself in Wikipedia, but it's here, or you can read it right here if you want. But as you can see, this is very serious. So we not only see the Zika virus being associated with microcephaly, but also with Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next, please.
Yeah, just to say that Guillain-Barré syndrome is transient, in that you can pretty much recover from it. In some cases not fully. It's associated with a number of different infections, and it just so happens that Zika is one of them. But Guillain-Barré syndrome isn't nice.
No. Now, there is some good news, and this company in Inovio has gotten an okay to test the new Zika virus vaccine. And there's a couple of reports here. I want to read a couple of them. It says, interim results from the trial, which will involve 40 healthy adults, are expected later this year. Testing in mice and monkeys has shown the vaccine triggered what Inovio called a robust antibody response. And from the other one, Inovio's vaccine uses 2 new technologies, synthetic pieces of DNA, and a new delivery system that uses an electric pulse to open up immune cells so that they take up the vaccine better. And it also, you notice that I have underlined there? Mm-hmm. Those trials are going to start at the end of August, so that's pretty quick. They're moving very quickly with this. That's because it's such a danger, and we hope that this works. So
that'll be just after the Olympics finish.
Yeah, unfortunately. But this is still really fast. For a vaccine to be developed.
It's very fast, and that's because I think it has been recognised just how big the risk is from this disease.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are not talking about, a number of people, maybe getting sick and we have some deaths and that's it. We're talking about babies being born with microcephaly and microencephaly,
right?
Which they don't get better from small head and small brain, and those who are significantly disabled by this condition could live for 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So the consequences of an infection now could still be being felt in decades to come.
Mm.
Yeah.
Long-term care, long-term expense, especially for a poorer country such as South America, such as South American ones.
Yes.
And not only that, of course, it could also partially decimate a generation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A generation of children that are either not being born or are being born with deficiencies.
Yeah, and you noticed too earlier, when I was talking about transmission, it appears that men can transmit the virus if they've shown no symptoms of the disease. So this is, really pretty scary. Anyway, next. Now, this is just a couple of articles. One of the ways that they are fighting the Zika virus is with genetically modified mosquitoes. And as it says in the one article at the upper left, it shows that this has been used with dengue, and it says cases of dengue dropped 91% due to genetically modified mosquitoes. And again, I'll make sure the links are available so that anyone who wants to read more about this can. And on the other side, it points out, it says, this firm breeds special male mosquitoes that are released into the air and help stop the spread of Zika by passing along a gene to their offspring that make them die young. So this is one of the ways they're trying to fight, that they have been fighting dengue fever, and that they are looking into fighting the Zika virus. But again, these things take time. Okay. Go on to the next one, because here's where we get into the politics of Zika.
Yeah.
And the first is the Olympics. And you can see this. Now, who says the Olympics?
I'm really bothered by this. I really, really am.
I am. Yeah.
The cost. I mean, I watch Formula One, and if a race is rained off effectively, the cost for for the all across the world, for all the sports channels, on TV and things like that, they're disrupted. It screws up the whole schedule, all sorts of things. So there's always this demand to get them racing as soon as they can,
Right.
And the problem is the Olympics is the biggest game in town, the biggest game in the world for all of those, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, So there's this big danger of, we can't put this off. We got, people who pay millions, billions of pounds, dollars, in sponsorship and funding, and whether it's sponsorships of athletes or whether it's just sponsorship of the whole thing, and schedules that have all been arranged, and all these sorts of things. This is the kind of thing you can't change, because of money. Yeah. And sometimes this is an example where money shouldn't always be the biggest driving force in the world. That safety is more important. Let's put it off for a couple of months. Let's put it off until September, September into October. That might be better, especially if we've got a vaccine or whatever it is that may be coming up, at the end of August.
Or drain the freaking swamps. Because this is part of the problem. You already showed that other picture. Do you have that other one available again?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the World Health Organization says the Olympics should go ahead. I find that appalling that they are saying that. I think they're saying that for political reasons, and this is why, I put this under the whole political heading, because that's the decision that I think is being made here. Given what we know about the Zika virus, given that we know the mosquitoes breed in standing water, given that we know that um, there are two mosquitoes that are implicated right now. One we know for certain, the Aedes aegypti, that transmits the Zika virus to humans. Another that we know that will carry the Zika virus, but we have no proof yet of transmission to humans. But since it does bite humans and it does carry the Zika virus, there's a pretty good chance it does affect humans. Then we have the Culex, for which there is no proof yet that it would bite. It doesn't. It can carry the Zika virus. It doesn't bite humans a lot. But when you have lots and lots and lots of mosquitoes and lots and lots and lots of people, that increases the possibility of even the rarer situation of a Culex mosquito biting a human happening and transmitting the virus. And this is potentially pretty scary. So even those areas that we didn't show on the maps could be affected. We don't know yet. There's a lot we don't know yet. And to simply allow people to show up in an area filled with swamps, guys, filled with swamps. It's also a place filled with slums. And there's bound to be standing water in slums. And filled with mosquitoes. And has a Zika epidemic. So we're going to take those conditions, which look like a perfect storm, and we're going to dump people from all over the world there.
Yeah.
And we're going to, have them exert themselves and get sweaty, and sweat attracts mosquitoes. And it's just a very terrifying thing. Now,
one thing you can say though, sales of mosquito repellent are going to go through the roof.
Right. There are a number of prominent athletes in certain sports, such as golf, who have refused, and this is the golf course, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That have refused to go to the Olympics.
Yeah, the athletes have been pulling out. It's one thing to bear in mind, and I don't think we emphasise this, is that the mosey that's involved is a daytime active mosey.
Yeah.
So all this, you know how when you're trying to avoid malaria, what you do is you sleep under a mosey net, because the mosquito is a nocturnally active mosey that passes on malaria. The mosey's involved in passing on Zika are daytime active. So sleeping under a mosey net makes not a blind bit of difference.
Yeah.
So you need to use mosey repellents. A lot of mosey repellent. And remember, it doesn't prevent them biting you. It just tends to put them off a bit. But a determined mosey will ignore the repellent. And there are a lot of determined moseys out there. And you look at the amount of standing water on that golf course.
It's not just on the golf course, it's all around it, because this is not the sea.
Yeah.
And you've got this big mass of water, on the Atlantic itself as well.
And what was that? What particular event was it that had the boats that were having problems?
The boats.
Oh,
the sailing. Yeah, the sailing. The sailing. That is in an actual. That is in the ocean, isn't it? And apparently they've got some sort of slick.
Yes, they've got a big pollution problem.
Yeah, all the boats that were out practicing came back brown.
Yeah.
From whatever slick it is, and all the fish were floating on the surface dead. And this is where the sailing is going to be for the Olympics.
Yeah, there was this.
There was a brilliant picture of it, and this picture showed.
Yeah. You could see this slick all matted around the bottom of the boat.
But also you could see pallets and all sorts. All this debris just floating about in the water where the racing is going to be. Wooden pallets and all sorts. The pollution is really bad there. But this thing about the golf, I'm just looking at that golf course, and I'm Scottish. And I know that those insects which have the aquatic larval stage would absolutely adore that. Where I live is midgie heaven. We get midgies. They're different from mosies. They're much smaller. They're more vicious. But I'm just looking at that and thinking, in an area where you get mosies, that is mosey paradise.
Yep. Tropical temperatures, standing water.
Yeah.
And different people have different susceptibilities to mosquitoes. I'll never
Yes.
forget the day when I was at my other house where I lived previously, and I was outside in the evening trimming the hedge. And there was a guy across the street who was standing there waiting probably for someone to pick him up to go up the hill because there's the bus stop there. But then people usually will get picked up by someone to be taken up in the mountains if they live up in the mountains. And as I'm trimming my hedge, I'm watching this guy, and he looks like he's crazy. He's leaping around and jumping, and it was like reminded me of the old oh crap, I can't remember that do you remember the disease where people were supposed to dance around and everything? And I'm looking at him thinking, what the hell's wrong with this guy? There's something really strange going on. And I kept trimming the hedge, and it got a little darker. And when it got a little darker, I could see, because he was standing under the streetlight, what was going on. The guy was being attacked by mosquitoes, ferociously attacked by mosquitoes. And he's leaping around and swatting the mosquitoes and jumping, and he looks like he's got St. Vitus dance. That's what I was thinking of, St. Vitus dance. Looks like he's got St. Vitus dance. And I'm cracking up. And as I'm watching him, I saw one lonely mosquito kind of wander my way and look at me and then fly off. So here I am wearing...
Not ugly, are you, Jade?
No, I'm not. You've seen pictures of me. No, I'm wearing short sleeves. I'm trimming the hedge, and I just sat there with the hedge trimmer looking at this poor guy thinking, wow, that poor guy, because the mosquitoes clearly preferred him to me. Some people are just going to get St. Vitus dance. They're just going to get totally attacked. And some people like me, not so much. That doesn't mean I don't get bit by mosquitoes, just not as much.
I've noticed that midges in Scotland, they tend to prefer males. And this guy invented a wonderful midgie repellent. Very few things work on midges. But he invented a midgie repellent called Shoo, as in shoo, go away, spelled Shoo. And so you go to Loch Lomond, you cover yourself in Shoo. And I noticed that more often than not, when we covered ourselves in Shoo, the females got immediate relief from the attack of the vicious midgie. The males didn't. Guys just didn't. It didn't seem to work on blokes. It was one of the strangest things.
Well, men tend to give sweat, smelly sweat.
We see what attracts the midges is actually carbon dioxide.
Huh.
They travel up a carbon dioxide gradient to get to the creature involved, whether it's a deer, a cow, a horse, or a human.
Right.
But for some reason, the repellents don't work with that particular one, didn't work as well on males as it did on females. So there was 4 of us, 2 females, 2 males, and the females put on the midgie repellent, and so did the males. And the females then had a brilliant day, and the guys moaned and whined and slapped and kicked and stamped and ran about. It's really strange.
See, I think there's just more evidence that man flu is worse than women think it is.
I'm assuming that in midges, both the males and the females bite.
No, just the females. When they're about to lay eggs.
Same with the mosquitoes.
Exactly.
It's only
the female midges.
Yes,
And they can also, they will lay their eggs in damp soil. They don't even need standing water.
Oh, wow.
I live in a
There's
bog.
an old... Because there's an old saying about mosquitoes, only the females bite, the males don't. We know that, only the females bite, the males don't. And like you said, it's when they're getting ready to lay eggs. But the interesting thing is the females make no noise whatsoever. It's the males that are buzzing. So if you hear a mosquito buzzing around, don't worry, it's a male. On the other hand, if you hear nothing...
Yeah, exactly. It's easy. It's well designed. Us females are sneaky.
At least half a dozen times during this little conversation, I found myself scratching.
It always happens. Listen, wait until we do a hangout about all the various worms and things that humans can get and the various parasitic infestations of the skin. We'll do a hangout on that one time, and we'll get the audience to actually know who starts scratching, and we'll see.
Oh,
I
that
remember
too.
we had a lecture that was an hour long about parasites, and at the end of it, most of us had clawed ourselves to bits. Sorry, anyway, let's get back to the topic.
I am going to
I
tell you
was.
a very quick, very comic-y story. Many years ago, when I was young and far more naughty, I went to school and I just had an itch, and I decided to make fun of it. So what happened was I scratched, and then I scratched again, and my friend sat next to me said, "What are you scratching for?" And I just said in a loud voice, "Sorry, the dog's got fleas." And within 5 minutes, the entire room was like that because they psychosomatic response. They basically imagined it. I got kicked out of class for that. Who knows why?
Yeah, right. Okay. So anyway, that's the first part of the political, I want to talk about is the Olympics and how potentially dangerous this is. And we will only know, unfortunately, we will only know how dangerous this is in the months to come
Mm.
as people go home to their home countries. And I hope that the officials at the Olympics or the various different Olympic groups from the different countries have instructed their Olympians well to let them know if they feel any have a rash, a fever, or anything like that. The problem with this is that athletes are often afraid that they're not going to be allowed to compete if they're the least little bit ill, that they're going to get pulled.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got an athlete who's got watery eyes, a bit of a rash, and a fever, but they feel okay, they may say nothing because they're afraid they're going to get pulled from competition.
Mm.
But I do hope they, at least when they go home, they might say, I was feeling a little off one down there, and it would, the really ideal situation, which isn't going to happen, I'm sure, would be to test all returned Olympians for the Zika virus.
Yeah.
I think also, why not do a double check? Doping tests get done all the time throughout.
Yeah.
That would be a good opportunity. Go on.
Yeah.
But I think one of the reasons is because doping tests tend to use a sample of urine, and I think for Zika, you need a blood test.
Yeah, you need a blood test. Yeah.
Because you're going to look for antibodies.
Yeah.
And remember, you can have no symptoms whatsoever and still be infected. So the ideal situation would be, as returning Olympians, come back to their home countries, that they all get tested. Not just the Olympians, but all the staff that goes with them. Anyone who goes with them gets tested for the Zika virus, and the same goes for anyone who's going to the Olympics. I really hope that countries emphasize this. If you're going to the Olympics, when you get back, please get tested for the Zika virus, even if you felt fantastic. And I also hope that some countries will put forward money to assist with this. At which point, I'd like to go to the next slide.
Yes.
That this is a good slide, though, because in the midst of all of this, even the Pope has said that contraception could be permissible in the Zika fight. Because the only other option is for people to essentially remain celibate until the Zika virus has passed. And that's not going to happen. Because that's just not going to happen. People who are married, sex is a very important part of intimacy. It's not going to happen. So even the Pope has said that contraception could be permissible in the Zika fight. Mm-hmm. And yet, we have people here in the United States. Next slide. This is where it gets me angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple of things are going on. Look at these titles. And yes, I know this is the Huffington Post, but these were the most convenient articles, but you can find this elsewhere, because I know people are going to Huffington Post. Doesn't mean the data is bad. GOP Zika bill limits contraception access and prevents Planned Parenthood from helping. Planned Parenthood, which is a massive organization all over the United States, which could assist with this virus. But Republican Congress members have such a stick up their asses about Planned Parenthood that they're going to endanger the public of the United States to see to it that Planned Parenthood can't help. This is the absolute ridiculousness of the Republican Party at the moment, that they would even think about this. There are times where you want to carry on your fight against Planned Parenthood, you just do that, but not now. Not when we have this dangerous disease lurking at our borders. Not when we have the chance of microencephaly and Guillain-Barré syndrome, and possibly affecting our populace. And the worst, of course, are the babies that will be born with either microcephaly or microencephaly. This is dangerous. And what do we see the Republicans in Congress doing? They're going to play politics with people's lives, with an epidemic looming on our borders. There's already, it's already happening in Puerto Rico. We have just seen, Cliff, you don't have to bring that up. I'm going to look at it right now. We have just seen the very first native case of Zika transmission in Florida. And the Florida Department of Health says this possible non-travel related case of Zika occurred in Miami-Dade County. And it means it's possible the infected person did not catch the virus while traveling in another country where the virus is spreading. Rather, the infection might have been acquired from an infected mosquito. Of course, there is a possibility of other things, but so far they've ruled out mosquitoes. They've ruled out they've ruled out travel. Mm-hmm. And they've ruled out sex so far. Of course, people can lie about things like that. But even if this isn't the first case, we're going to have one. It's probably going to be in Florida. And then adding to that, the other thing that I had just posted on my website today, where's the little bugger? The strange new case might change what we know about Zika. A caregiver in Utah didn't contract Zika from a mosquito or sex, leading health officials to investigate a new route to transmission. Zika virus infection appears to have passed from one member of a Utah family to another, but not by any of the known paths of transmission: sex, pregnancy, or mosquito bite. This case was announced Monday by the Utah Prevention of Health and Centers. This Monday, by the way, by the Utah Department of Health, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reveals that the risks posed by the novel, fast-moving virus are still not understood. The agency said in a back-to-back press conferences that a family contact of an elderly man who died in June and who was discovered after his death to have been the first Zika-related death in the continental United States had come down with the disease. That person, who helped care for the ailing man, experienced mild Zika symptoms of rash and fever, and has recovered. The first patient, the elderly man, traveled to a place where Zika is circulating and was probably infected there. Trapping and testing by Utah mosquito control teams, which operate in warm weather months to search for West Nile virus, have not uncovered either of the mosquito species believed to transmit Zika, meaning it is unlikely the dead man passed the virus to a mosquito, which then passed it back to a human. They haven't even been able to find the freaking mosquitoes. And if you remember those maps, Utah is not a place where either of the two mosquitoes that are thought to transmit Zika live. So, what we have here... go ahead.
They're spending all this money on mosquito control and none on contraception. And if it actually manages to achieve person-to-person transmission, then all the mosquito control in the world won't make a blind bit of difference. Yippee!
Exactly. Now, we do know that this man was a caregiver, so perhaps there is some serum contact. The man may have had a cut on his hand. We don't know, or I think it was a man. We don't know what has happened here. They're investigating it, just like they haven't confirmed the Florida case. But even if this Florida case is not the first one, there will be a first one. There's no doubt about that. It's in Puerto Rico right now. It's coming. It's going to be on our horizons. Yeah. If there is another potential method of transmission besides the ones we already know, pregnancy, sex, or being bit by a mosquito, this gets even scarier.
Yeah.
And remember, again, I can't emphasize this enough, you can be infected with the Zika virus and show no symptoms and pass it on to someone else via sex.
And I've
But what?
noticed also the
Go ahead.
Republicans have this really nasty habit of wanting to effectively defund, uh, you know, help for people who are disabled and things like that. You know, they and effectively they really care about abortion not happening, but once the kid is born, they really don't give a shit.
Right. And they don't seem to be giving a shit too much about children who might be born with microcephaly.
Mm.
And I wanted to go to another thing that just recently popped up, where the CDC director, and I'll give links to these things as well. CDC director said this is no way to fight an epidemic, and said here's a good point. Okay, let me read this. Zika, the perplexing mosquito-borne virus that causes the life-altering birth defect microcephaly, has so far infected 1,306 known people in the continental United States and another 1,610 in U.S. territories, including 649 pregnant women. Remember, it isn't even really here yet, okay? But last week, Congress began, and it really makes me mad, okay? This just really makes me mad. Congress began its 7-week summer recess without approving a supplemental appropriation that would have contributed more than $1 billion to the fight against the virus. When do you folks think that these mosquitoes are going to be really active?
In the summer.
Yes, excellent, Cliff. So what did our fucking Congress do?
But
They went on a 7-week summer recess.
Yeah.
And here's a good one. Since the request for money was first made in February by President Barack Obama.
Can I just have a double guess?
Yes.
Did Obama suggest this, and the Republicans went, "No, we're not going to give you anything"?
Yeah, it said the request was made by Obama in February.
Mm-hmm.
Now remember, if you look at the timeline, this epidemic is occurring in late 2015, 2016. It's 2016. So Obama looked at what was happening. He had the brains to realize, oh, fuck. And so he contacted Congress and told them, oh, fuck, look at this. What did Congress do? Fuck, nothing. And I'm cursing, because this is really making me angry. They're gone for 7 weeks. Who cares what happens in the meantime, I guess. So the request was made by Barack Obama, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and other public health agencies. They warned that failing to fund the Zika fight would have dire consequences. With new money off the table until at least September, and given the election season, possibly longer, the guy says, I talked to CDC Director Thomas Friedman about what happens next. And okay, so I'm going to read just a little bit of part of this interview. So he asked him, he goes, first, what does the newest Zika case in Utah, in which one family member appears to infected another, say to you about what we don't know about Zika? His response: it is remarkable how surprising Zika has been. This is the first time we have had a mosquito-borne infection that can cause a devastating birth defect. It is the first time we have a mosquito-borne infection that can be sexually transmitted. And if the Utah investigate confirms person-to-person spread, it will be the first time we have had person-to-person transmission of a virus of this type. Let me go. A couple questions down. I'm skipping some questions. At the end of last week, Congress went on recess without approving any funding to fight Zika. Neither the $1.9 billion that President Obama asked for in February, nor the $1.1 billion lawmakers had compromised on. They will be gone for 7 weeks, which happens to be most of the mosquito season. Your reaction? Mosquitoes don't go on summer break. This is no way to fight an epidemic.
Yeah.
We would like to be really, and remember that one. That should be, someone should send that to every member of Congress. Mosquitoes don't go on a summer break. This is no way to fight an epidemic.
Yeah, exactly. But they're not going to get it, Jade, because, you see, I think mosquito-borne infection. I don't think they've really taken on board that the States already has mosquito-borne infection. West Nile virus, for a start.
Mm-hmm.
And the horsey community is very up on that one, because horses can get it. And also when sexually transmitted diseases are talking about, well, none of the good Christians will get it, and hang the rest of them. So they don't think it's a priority. And what they're forgetting is that all you need is a pregnant woman to be exposed to her own blinking husband. We're not talking sexual immorality or anything like that here. But for some reason, as soon as sexual transmission is brought up in any context, it suddenly just drops down in level of importance. And I think they're going to rue the day. They need to get a handle on this early. Once you wait until it is out of control, then by definition you will not get control. Sorry, a bit of a rant there.
No, and I agree with you. They asked for this in February. What the hell is wrong with our Congress? This is serious. Are they that freaking stupid? Well, actually, apparently some of them are, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. This is dangerous. We're going to have basically an entire summer go by while Zika starts traveling through the United States. And as Fiona said, all a woman has to do is be exposed to her husband. And if her husband is outside and there are mosquitoes and they're carrying the Zika virus, they might bite him. And he might carry the virus to his wife. This is really scary. And the CDC director goes on to explain there's a lot we still don't know, and we really, 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 really need funds to do this research as well as to do prevention. And state and local authorities are really upset about this too, because they're going to do the very best they can with what they have, but they need more funds. We're going to need more people out there looking for standing water. We're going to need more people out there. We're going to need money for spots on television and things like that to inform people about this. One of the things that's a bit ironic, because you talked about sex and the good Christians aren't going to get this, given where these mosquitoes live, where do you think the Zika virus is going to hit first? Bible Belt?
Yeah.
So all those...
South America is very much Latino and have, tend to be Catholic in standing. But yeah, certainly Bible Belt countries in the US.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the areas that you're talking about where there can be a real big problem from the get-go. It's going to be, the Mississippi Delta, Louisiana,
Florida,
Florida with its
Eastern Texas.
Yeah. Because of where the mozzies are and where the mozzies can breed. And this is going to be, I get a horrible feeling that they're going to shut the stable door after the horse is bolted on this one. Or to use another way of putting it, they're not going to be able to put the toothpaste back in the tube. They'd be better not letting it out in the first place. But they're just going to sit back and have their summer recess. And I think the fact that the Olympics are about to start, where people from all over the world are all going to congregate in this one place, they're going to have a ball, and they're all going to scatter back home again. I think that's what makes it a bit more important to deal with it, because we do have this big event. It's a global event, but in one place that will have repercussions around the globe. And that's, it's not a normal year. An Olympic year is not a normal year when it comes to the way people are moving about the globe. And this is going to be a big problem.
I just want to show you this. This is the UK government website, which has, and bear in mind that if you look at the date at the top, this is December of last year, when they started this off, and it's been updated a number of times since, and it's just giving various types of advice all the way through. symptoms, transmission, advice for travelers,
Yeah.
preventing mosquito bites, etc., etc. There's loads of great advice that's available, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's available, and news organisations in the UK have been saying, the government has issued, warnings and awareness and things like that. I don't know. I don't watch TV anymore, but I don't know whether this kind of thing is like little adverts and things.
Have are there your travel guidances or guidance for travellers, etc., been put out in the States
Oh
in
yeah. Well,
the same way?
yeah. The Centers for Disease Control and the National Institutes of Health both have information on the Zika virus. The problem is our federal government should be advertising this to everybody. And
Yes.
that's where I find the fault. You saw I showed a slide from Canada, which showed the Canada, restrictions for suggestions for travelers and what the Zika was about. Because I thought that was a really good slide, a good picture that they did. But yes, if you go to the Center for Disease Control site or the National Institutes of Health site, you'll find a lot of information about this. But we need more than that. This is serious, and this is something that could affect a lot of the United States. And as I've already pointed out, especially it's gonna come in Florida. We know that it's gonna come in Florida, or somewhere near the Gulf Coast, somewhere in the Gulf Coast near Florida, and it's going to hit. Yeah, it's going to hit the Bible Belt first. Good going, guys.
Mm-hmm.
The northern liberals are probably pretty clear from it, unless it's the other Aedes mosquito, which is also possible. In which case, it'll move up the eastern coast. So. But that'll take a little bit longer. We don't know what the transmissibility of that mosquito is at all at this point. And of course, the Culex, that's probably pretty remote chance at this point that the Culex will carry the Zika virus to any extent here in the United States. In some places with huge populations and massive numbers of people, it might be a greater problem. In certain like slums of the world, various really, it's probably not going to be a problem for us. But look at the other methods of transmission we're looking at, and we don't know all the methods of transmission yet. And as the Center for Disease Control director said, this is the first mosquito-borne illness that causes birth defects. This is the first mosquito-borne illness that can be transmitted through sex. And this may be the first that can be transmitted through other ways. This is scary stuff. And our government goes on vacation.
Yeah.
It just infuriates me. Now, I want to go on to Wu in a minute, but I want to bring something else up. This is from last week's Nature. It's not about Zika per se, but it does show the way we look at things and our priorities. Okay. And it's from last week's Nature. Zika raises wider birth defect issue. It says a virus is killing hundreds of babies in the United States each year and leaving thousands with debilitating birth defects, including abnormally small heads and brains. This is not Zika virus. It's a common and much less exotic one, cytomegalovirus. Now, as the eyes of the media and health officials focus on the spread of Zika in the Americas and beyond, many researchers and advocates hope that funders and health agencies will at last pay more attention to a much greater global problem. The millions of babies born year in and out with often serious birth defects. Quote, birth defects are not high on the public health agenda, unquote, says Stanley Plotkin, a retired scientist who in the 1970s developed the current vaccine against rubella. He says Zika is an opportunity to raise the profile of birth defects among research funders and public health agencies, and to accelerate the efforts to find a CMV vaccine, that's cytomegalovirus. So it isn't just Zika. Cytomegalovirus is causing birth defects. Millions of babies born each year with the birth defects. So a lot of them caused by cytomegalovirus. And Plotkin made a very good point, a very important point. Birth defects are not high on the public health agenda. But when they're preventable, why aren't they?
Yeah.
We're moving with rapidity to find a Zika vaccine. What about the cytomegalovirus vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
And what else is out there that we're not paying attention to because it doesn't fit into our political spectrum? It's the only thing I wanted to say about that, because if anything,
It reminds me of something when I studied psychology. Pills are cheap, therapy is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
right.
You know,
Okay, so
and the
right.
price you as an individual pay for your medical insurance to deal with a kid that's got this complication, is a lot cheaper for the government than the government spending millions, billions of dollars, trying to deal with an illness that is preventable.
Exactly.
Even if it's just
And
awareness of it.
right. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, if with Zika, if people could just get tested for Zika. I mean, to me, it seems right now, if anyone's listening to this and you're thinking of having a child, or you, well, if you're thinking of having a child anytime in the future,
Mm-hmm.
please pay attention to this. And maybe you want to, especially if you live in one of the southeastern states, you might want to put off having a child. If you do decide to have a child, you might want to get tested for Zika, because you don't know where your neighbors have been. That's just the way it is. We don't know yet. Anyway, I want to go on to slide 55, which I think is the next slide.
Yep, give me a second.
With everything that happens, we get the woo. We get the nutters. We get the conspiratards. And here we go. Oh, dear. God help us. So, there are
Oh, good
several.
grief.
Yeah. There are several conspiracy / myth / ridiculously insane theories out there.
Do General Motors make mosquitoes? Just saying.
Yes. What? You didn't know about the General Motor mosquito? It was great in swamps, but it didn't do very well in the dry weather.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is from Health Nut News, guys.
So how did they explain then the Zika in Polynesia and in Africa prior to 2015, where the GM mosquitoes weren't released?
I know. No, they don't. Not only that, the timing doesn't work, although I don't have a slide for that. If you bother to research this, you will find that the timing doesn't freaking work. Okay? Other people have busted this. Can we go to the next slide? Now, this one may be hard for people to see, but you can go to Snopes and find out for yourself. The mosquito blight. It says a number of articles inspired by a single speculative comment in Reddit's conspiracy section suggested that Zika was transmitted by genetically modified mosquitoes. That's all it takes for these nutters.
Yeah.
Somebody says, "Oh, I wonder if we're going to find out that Zika was caused by aliens tomorrow."
Yeah, of course they are.
And it says this, right. And it says, here we go. On 29th of January 2016, the unreliable alternative medicine website Health Nut News, let's emphasize the nut part, published an article that we already seen in the same energy and mosquitoes on it. It speculated that the Zika outbreak was caused by the introduction of mosquitoes which were genetically modified to decrease their ability to be vectors of disease.
Oh, goodness.
The mosquitoes were genetically modified to decrease their ability to be vectors, but somehow magically they're responsible. And it pointed to Reddit thread, and this echoed similar fears expressed in the Florida Keys in 2012 when residents feared that genetically modified mosquitoes posed unpredictable threats. And the World Health reported a briefing saying that the level of alarm was extremely high and the virus was spreading. But you get to the bottom, it says a couple of things. First of all, in short, epidemiologists worldwide were hard at work to identify the cause or causes of Zika. And by all accounts, the Zika outbreak was both mosquito-borne and potentially severe. And, of course, there's more to it than that, but I'm just, cut a couple of phrases out. It says, finally, No aspect of the rumor made any clear or distinct connection between Zika and genetically modified mosquitoes. The claim simply pointed to an outbreak after the introduction of the mosquitoes in 2012 without any additional elaboration on how one might have affected the other. If genetically modified mosquitoes were a possible factor in the spread of Zika or increased microcephaly births, it remained extremely unlikely such a link would escape the world epidemiology experts and be discovered only by speculation by internet comments in Reddit conspiracy sub. And as I pointed out, others have actually tracked looked at the dates, the exact dates, and the timing doesn't work. Next slide, please. Let's get ready to facepalm again.
And we had that, the one that we dealt with the other week as well.
Yeah, we're going to bring that one up again briefly.
Right.
Here's another theory. It's the pesticides, guys. That's what's doing it.
Oh, dear.
Pesticides in Brazil and Pernambuco state are more likely to be the cause of microcephaly and birth defects than Zika virus, and the links below speak for themselves. Excuse me. The farmers in Brazil go ahead, I've got a cough.
I mean, the fact that we're actually testing these little babies that have been born with microcephaly and finding the Zika virus in them. And also, in some of the miscarriages, we were testing them and finding the Zika virus there. And that means nothing to these people. It's pesticides. It's General Motors special mosquitoes. You know, and that from now on it's going to be the General Motors mosquito. Why do they have to, we have results showing the presence of the Zika virus? No, it can't be that, too obvious.
Well, not only that, you know, it's got the signature of the Zika virus, a mutated Zika virus from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow the chain back.
Yes, you can. You can actually follow it.
You know,
they're actually doing genetic studies on the virus. But remember, this is a new area. We didn't bother worrying about Zika virus when it was in areas of low population density and just among faintly brown people. We're only getting concerned about it now that we're thinking, oh gosh, the pale people might be affected as well and in large numbers.
Yeah.
We haven't looked at this disease. Now, when you've only got sporadic cases, it's difficult to actually see a correlation between virus and possibly microcephaly and say, let's investigate this. If you don't have enough numbers or enough reports, because you don't have somebody in every single village on the planet who is looking for any correlations. The word has to get out. But now it's got out. And we're starting to look at it. But there are so many things we need to examine here. There are so many questions we don't have an answer to yet. And the money needs to, the funding needs to be put in to allow that work to be done. Because scientists need to eat as well.
Yeah.
You can't not put money in it because you need to pay the wages of the scientists. Anyway, Jade, on you go.
And one of the things I want to point out, it's just moving very fast, because two of the things I brought up today, the thing in Florida and the thing in Utah, are brand new. One is from July 18th, one is from July 20th, or at least the news. And what's the date today? 21st. So these are brand new. This is changing constantly, folks. I didn't even have those things available to me when I first went into this. Now, the one thing it says about this is at the bottom, because it's just hysterical. I have to say this before we get to the next slide. The most obvious case of birth defects in this area is direct contact and absorption of pesticides. Seriously. How stupid. Now, let's go on to the next one. Next slide. Now, This is a good article, and we'll link it, or you can find it yourself. NBC News. Is it really GMOs or insecticides? What's behind the bogus Zika rumors? And again, you can read this. We've already talked about, but the part I wanted to bring up is this part right here, which I kind of alluded to about, how just really bright our Congress is. On Wednesday, the mist took to the stage on Capitol Hill as Florida Representative John Mika, I'm not sure which, armed with a big yellow spray bottle of mosquito repellent, asked whether the bug spray would help or hurt people. They have this, but they also found it causes cancer, Mika said at the House subcommittee hearing on paying for Zika readiness. Is this stuff good to use? And are you guys recognizing that? Is the cure worse than the disease? Apparently, the Florida representative's too fucking stupid to read.
Yeah.
That's my comment on this.
I mean, basically, yes, it causes cancer. Do not drink this.
Yeah. Well, or what they're talking about, generally speaking, is in some parts of the world, you have farm workers working in pesticide-laden environments. There was, expose done in what was happening in Mexico a number of, decade or two ago, and they showed that they were washing in the runoff from the fields, the water in the canals, the runoff from the fields, filled with pesticides. It was like yellow and orange. They were washing there. They were living immersed in pesticides. There's a big difference between that and, the kind of pesticides that we apply today. But this is ridiculous. We know Zika causes this. Mm-hmm. Holy fuck. How dumb are you? Can you fucking read? This is part of what's wrong with our Congress. We get some numbskull throwing a snowball on the House floor, or this House or Senate, it was Senate floor, because global warming isn't happening. Then we get another numbskull showing up with a spray bottle on the House floor. Oh, dear God. Anyway, last slide.
Yep, so.
Now, we already dealt with this. We have an entire hangout on this, but wanted to bring it up briefly, and I'll let Fiona give you a summary of what we talked about.
Yes. This particular, I call it article, but really it's a piece of excrement, but we'll call it article anyway, claims that a government document from 1991 had confirmed a link between the triple vaccine and microcephaly. Triple vaccine being tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. So we're not talking little diseases that we play about with. Tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis, i.e. whooping cough. Okay. Now, when you actually looked at the study that this article was referencing, the only mention of microcephaly was in mentioning microcephaly as a predisposing factor to infantile spasms. No link was drawn at all between microcephaly and the vaccine. And in fact, the entirety of the 1991 document says of every single syndrome they looked at, and there was 4 of them, and none of the 4 were microcephaly, that there was no link. So there was no link to the 4 specified syndromes. None. And none of the 4 specified syndromes was microcephaly. And from that article, we got that headline. 1991 government document confirms Tdap vaccine causes microcephaly. And that is utter bollocks. That's nonsense. The 1991 survey didn't confirm the vaccine caused anything. In fact, it stated the opposite. Now, what bothers me about this is, given that we're in the run-up to the Olympics, and given we're going to have this global movement of people, they're going to watch the Olympics and they're all going to go home. And we're going to start seeing cases of microcephaly if the Zika virus does get out there. If this article causes a single person to not get a child vaccinated for diphtheria and tetanus and pertussis, and that child comes down with one of these diseases, then that article, in my opinion, is culpable. Because they have claimed a link has been drawn by this 1991 document, where the document specifically states there is no link with 4 syndromes, none of which are microcephaly. And that bothers me. That's, in my opinion, gutter journalism at its worst. We went through this. There is, you will check on my channel and you will find an episode of It's the Science Bitches special episode or special edition or whatever, and it's in between this one, which is number 4, and number 3. You'll find it in there where we specifically look at this article, this news article, and we look at the source that the news article used, and we show that the source doesn't say anywhere what the article claims it says. And in fact, if whoever had written this article, which was apparently the editor-in-chief, had read the study that he claimed to be reporting about, he could never have come to that conclusion.
And not only did he read the study, he quoted it. You know, it's the link is for it on there.
He put the link, but he's either not read the study or he has confused terminology and thinks that encephalitis is microcephaly. And it's not. Not at all. And that is the problem. Sorry, I swallowed the wrong way. But that's the difficulty that we have with this. That he is making a claim about the 1991 article, which the 1991 article specifically not only doesn't say, but actually comes out against that there's any link between that vaccine and any of these syndromes. But it doesn't even bother looking at microcephaly. So how can it be confirming a link between the vaccine and microcephaly? It can't. And it's a dreadful article. So we're going to have people who will ignore the advice given about mozzies and standing water and all the rest of it, and instead not vaccinate their children against diphtheria, tetanus and pertussis. And that's scary. And also, given that it's yet another vaccine scare story, and I mean it's just all hyped up, it is a false scare story. If a Zika vaccine is developed, you think it's going to make it any easier to actually get people to accept the vaccine. And so that particular one really annoyed me. I was incandescent with rage over this one because it is such a terrible misrepresentation of the 1991 government document. So once again, we'll have the conspiracy theorists jumping on the bandwagon. The anti-vaxxers are going to use Zika to their own ends to try and push their anti-vax nonsense. I mean, they're actually now they're trying to stop you getting your child vaccinated against diphtheria and tetanus and whooping cough based on the Zika outbreak.
Yeah.
It is pathetic. And they will do this. They will take anything that people are concerned about and use it to their own ends, and they don't care how much misrepresentation and outright lies they have to use. They will do that for their own ends because they have decided vaccine's bad. Let's grab anything that we can spin and twist and pretend supports us when it actually states the exact bloody opposite. Rant finished.
Right. So, so we have, in summary, we have a disease that can have devastating effects,
Yes.
especially on an unborn fetus,
Mhm.
that is moving rapidly into the United States, that is carried by at least one kind of, most likely two kinds of mosquitoes, possibly under certain circumstances, three kinds of mosquitoes. It is also transmitted by sex. Both male to female and female to male have been confirmed. We also have a situation where it may be have been passed from person to person. That's unclear yet. Um, and we have a government that decides to go on vacation rather than to deal with the situation, even though the president and the CDC and other health organizations in this country have asked for assistance as early as February. Um, and this is pretty scary. The disease that you get, the Zika virus, is sometimes undetectable. And when it is detectable, it mimics a lot of other things, so people may not even know they had it. We have no vaccine for this, and the only treatment, like with most viruses, is to treat the symptoms, because antibiotics don't work on viruses. The mosquitoes breed in standing water, which is freaking everywhere, and it doesn't take them long to go from eggs that are laid to an adult mosquito, which can then go out and bite people and start spreading the Zika virus. But our government goes on vacation because our government would rather go on vacation than deal with a real serious problem sitting on our borders, even though the people who are causing this problem, namely the Republican Party, seem to be really, 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 really upset about our borders under most circumstances. But in this particular case, well, let's just go on vacation, even though we're going on vacation during the time of the year when mosquitoes proliferate more than any time else, and where there is a greater likely chance of transmitting the Zika virus, which is on our shores, and we already have people who have it here, and it's moving into our country. So we have this potentially very, very dangerous situation. And in the meantime, we have nutters, conspiracy theorists, and just completely insane people coming up with any sort of possible explanation for why the Zika virus, something we have confirmed, by the way, completely confirmed. As Fiona has pointed out, it has been found in miscarried fetuses. It has been found in the brains of children who have microcephaly. There is no question whatsoever that this disease is caused by microcephaly. It's not caused by GMO mosquitoes. It's not caused by pesticides. It's not caused by vaccines.
Also, that picture you put up earlier on with the twins.
Yeah.
The little boy and girl. The little girl has microcephaly, and they detected virus in her. The little boy doesn't, and no virus was detected in him. And they are known. They are paternal twins. They're known identical, so they had separate amnions.
Right. In other words, they were in separate sacs.
In
the mother. I don't know of any situations yet with identical twins. That would be interesting to see. But if they're in separate amniotic sacs, of course they aren't necessarily communicating directly with each other. They are communicating through the mother. Why the boy didn't get it, why the girl did get it, is unknown. And there are 6 so far known cases of twins that they're investigating. So I think that summarizes it, except this is scary. Don't have kids in the near future, especially if you live in the south of the United States. And use protection, even the Pope says it's okay under these circumstances. Please use condoms. If you don't know where to get condoms, call Planned Parenthood, because even though our Congress has such a stick up its ass about Planned Parenthood, or at least the Republicans in Congress have such a stick up their ass about Planned Parenthood, that they, even if they did decide to pass the money for Zika before they went on their little 7-week vacation during the height of the time where the Zika virus might be transmitted, even if they had passed the bill that they had, which they knocked down from 1.9 million to 1.1 million, what the hell? It's only a major epidemic. What's a few $1 million? We don't need those to fight it. Planned Parenthood would not be allowed to participate, even though it's one of the largest, if not the largest, distributor of free condoms in this country.
Mhm.
Would not be allowed to participate. Nevertheless, Planned Parenthood, being Planned Parenthood, would still distribute those condoms. So if you don't know where to get them, go talk to Planned Parenthood. If you have a few extra bucks, give it to Planned Parenthood because they're going to fucking need it because our Congress is
Not doing its job
yeah,
again.
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for saying that before I lit into a string of obscenities. Yes, that's exactly what's going on.
Tell me, Jade, do you feel quite strongly about this by any chance?
Oh, not at all. I don't. We have, they're worried about illegals coming across the border, but fuck it. What's an epidemic?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
That doesn't seem to be very important. An epidemic that causes children to be born with severe birth defects. I mean, it's nothing compared to Mexicans taking our jobs. Or maybe perhaps we'll get some jihadi across the border, dressed as I don't know what, But yeah, we have a real danger, a real present, imminent danger on our borders. But because it doesn't wear the hijab or Arabic robes and it doesn't have a brown face and says I will work for free, they're not concerned about it. So yeah. No, I don't feel strongly about this, Fiona.
Right, well, I think we've covered everything. I want to thank everybody who watched us. And I think we dealt with all the questions that popped up. So if you have any questions, contact myself or Jade or Cliff. Jade will make available to me all the links that she used, and I will copy them into the description box underneath the video. Once the video finishes uploading to my channel, probably in the next couple of days, I'll manage to get those links in. And you can go and peruse them yourself. Now, the next Science Bitches, I'm not quite sure when it's going to be, because it seems that having a set time, on a Sunday night, just isn't working. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. So I think we'll aim for roughly a fortnight's time. What's our
Wait a second,
topic for
hang
the
on.
next one?
Sorry, wait a minute. You said it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Are you suggesting we're like Mickey Mouse or something?
It doesn't work. Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Oh, gonna no do that. Just gonna no. Anyway, what is our next topic going to be for us Science Bitches?
Oh, drat! I forgot. But
I'm
it's
just doing the screen sharing. You're the science nerd.
Yeah. We'll have to get back to you folks later because it escapes my mind right now, but it'll come back. It'll probably come back to Fiona's too. But we were going to start sort of a series building up to something. You remember?
That was it. That's the funny. We were going to look at structure of ATP mayonnaise.
That's right.
Potato salad with extra ATP mayonnaise. We're going to look at ATP synthesis. What's it for? I mean, really, what's it for? I asked that question about a lot of people, actually. What on earth are they for? But anyway, we're going to look at what it actually is doing. And then we're going to look at the bacterial flagellum. And then we're going to look at specifically type 3 secretory system. But I think it was either Rational Mind or CRISPR who wants in to talk about the type 6. And then we were going to tie them all together about similarities between them all.
Right.
So I'll try and sort of cobble something together, and we can try. And I'm going to have to drag in other people on this one. So I want to drag in Rational Mind, Scientist Sam, CRISPR, and if we can, Il Hog Tai Champ, to look at these 3 topics. And then the tying the 3 of them together. Because I think that'd be a very interesting one to do. But I definitely want Scientist Salmon. Because he's done a lot of the stuff that a lot of the past discussions on ATP synthase.
Yeah, but he got it all wrong, apparently.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm going to say it again. Gonna no do that. Just gonna no. So, Cliff has put inside chat and dodging his retroviruses. I thought we did them.
Sorry, did I?
We did.
No,
Did
we were
did them.
going to do them, but we put them off.
Did we?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, remember, we put them off. We had them set to be next, but then we put them off because we were going to go do the whole ATP to, stuff.
That's right. And then we thought we'd tackle endogenous retroviruses after that. And of course, prions intervened. And then, of course, Zika intervened. And that blinking article. So it's going to be, the next one is ATP mayonnaise. Okay? So we're going to deal with that. I'll get in touch with Sam and Rational Mind and CRISPR, etc. And we will get something pulled together for ATP mayonnaise. And that one, I think, we will open up to others to come in if they want to discuss it. So yeah, in roughly 2 weeks' time, you should be hearing about potato salad with the extra ATP mayonnaise. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. And thank you for sticking with us. So, people, say goodbye to our viewers.
Bye-bye.
Bye, viewers.
Bye-bye.